has changed my life. And so I hope that the feeling that I'm feeling can emanate to the audience so that they really understand how important and how valuable this book is. I'm just going to read a little bit of what's on the back of your book for those who haven't read it yet. Have you ever felt like you were feeding the world, but you were starving? Isn't this what Christianity is about, or is it? As a young Christian, the phrase, Jesus, others, you, joy, was common in my church circles. Because it reflected our responsibility to put the needs of others before the needs of ourselves, sometimes at the expense of ourselves. This type of thinking sounded good, but it was somewhat misleading and unbalanced, leaving me feeling incomplete. Has your church experience left you feeling that way too? Jesus, others, you, the self-centered gospel, is not a promotion of selfish humanism. This book, oh my goodness, it attempts to take a look at Christ, y'all. Nothing else. A Christ-centered individual with focus on how unity with Christ is the key to becoming who you were designed to be. Do you hear that, you guys? Are you interested in this book yet? If you haven't read it, well, you should be. I'm going to leave it at that because I want you guys to really get some of the surprises for yourself. But I just wanted to ask a few questions, Josh. Tell me a little bit about the mindset, where you were when you decided to write this book. Because when I read this book, how can I say this? I feel like it was right on time for me. So if it was right on time for me, I can't even imagine the root system that you had to pull from to get this out. So explain to us in a few words, what were you thinking and feeling when you wrote this?
I think at the time I was in a place of pain and a little bit of confusion. I had seen a lot in my circles and in the church world. Not just the church that I was at the time, but just in general. And so for me, it was, I had just pulled away from a lot of things and disengaged from a lot of things. And so I think the initial, this was me processing everything I'd gone through, everything that I'd seen,
yes.
And how does all that, or how did all that line up with what I felt, is this really what God is trying to communicate? The things that I saw, was this really what God is trying to say? And so that's kind of the journey that's how this started.
Wow. So you talked about briefly hurt and pain. Can you give me a brief example and also the audience of maybe what that looked like at the time?
I think in the book I talk about God being Emmanuel. And one of the things that I grew up learning was you had to jump through hoops to have a relationship with God. But one of the things I learned in this season is that God actually jumps through hoops to have a relationship with you. And so some of the hurts and pains came from me thinking that I was the one needing to do all the hoop jumping. But then I recognized, no, God was the one that did all the hoop jumping. So that's kind of something for that.
Amazing and well said. Thank you for that. So one of my favorite chapters, well, actually all of them are my favorite chapters. I'm not just saying that, you guys. Like, I really enjoyed everything. But one of my favorite chapters was I Still See You. Can you please describe to them what you were thinking and feeling when you wrote that chapter? Because it was a personal favorite of mine.
Yeah.
And I think that will also help some of the audience understand a little bit more about the book.
Kind of what I was saying before about and depending on where you come from and your understanding of God, a lot of times we think that that God is as touchy and as sensitive as we are, and that you could do one thing that's going to upset God, or a series of things that's going to upset God, and that's going to cause Him to not look at you. But that chapter, I Still See You, was really me delving into, I discovered that I saw God talking to me and communicating to me the most in times where I didn't think I deserved it.
Yes.
And it was because I saw that about God, and then I go back and started reading Scripture. There was a whole bunch of people that was the same situation. So I still see you gets into that whole mode of God looking for you, when you weren't looking for Him.
Oh my goodness, that so touched my heart because, just like you were saying earlier about the jumping through hoops, there's just this, I don't know what it is, Josh, but I think it's like this cloud of this barrier that we create between us and God.
Yeah.
And it's all based on things that I don't know where we even get this stuff from.
Right.
But it's just translated from generation to generation, especially in the church. Sometimes old wives' tales and all kinds of things get jumbled into the process, and it just clouds everything up. We can't even see our Creator.
Right. I feel like, and I don't remember whether or not I don't go into this in the book or not, but our fallen sin, it distorts our image of God. And when we have distorted image of God, we have distorted image of ourselves. And that distorts how we act. And so one of the things that I wanted to do in this book, and it wasn't so much I was trying to teach anything to other people, as much as it is I was processing through the things that were going through my own heart. And really God was ministering to me about things that were going on in my own life. And so, but yeah, God, one of the things is we need to be able to understand, like I said, God jumps through hoops for us to get to us. And our response to Him is just simply to make ourselves available to what He's already doing.
I love that. Just make yourself available. It's so simple.
Yeah.
So let's get into the title.
Okay.
Because when I first saw this book, because it came from you, I was like, cool, I'm going to read it and I want to dive more into it. But for someone who hasn't seen the book, it may actually look a little controversial, just based on the title. Jesus Others You, something that most people are familiar with,
Right.
The self-centered gospel.
Right.
So explain to us a little bit more about what the self-centered gospel means.
So as opposed to selfishness is about taking, centeredness is about stability. Self is about you as a person, or according to its definition, the core of what you are. So what we're talking about in the book is being stable around what's at your center, being stable and positioned around what's right there on the inside of you, as opposed to being anchored is a better way of saying it. And you can be a ship in the ocean, and if you're not anchored, every wave will toss you whatever direction, but being anchored keeps you in a place of stability, even though the storms are going on all around you. And so the idea of being self-centered is you're anchored on something that's on the inside of you. Now, the question would be then, what is it that's on the inside of you? So, and I think that to a degree, we're already all there. We already go back to what's on the inside of us. We already revert to what's at the center of us. And so then again, that begs the question, what is on the inside of you? Because your life will ultimately reflect that.
Wow. All right. Wow. Do you guys feel this? Like, it's amazing. That deserves a huge hand clap. I'm just so excited about this book. So on a little bit, let's go a little bit fun here. So is there a chapter in this book that you thought, you know what, I'm not going to put that in there. Maybe you thought, I don't want to put it in there. I'm going to put it in there. You kind of battled with it. And if so, which chapter was it?
There are two chapters that are like that. A Meal Fit for a King is a chapter I joked with and I was going to put in there. And then one of the last chapters, The Temple Within.
Another good one.
And I understand that I'm long-winded and sometimes can be redundant. And I didn't know if I was doing that, but as I read it, it was a different message or a different take on some of the same things. But yeah, those are the two that I juggle with.
Awesome. So what is it like for Joshua Banks to get prepared to write a book? Like, what are you thinking in your mind? Do you sit down? Do you have to give yourself a pep talk? What do you have to do? Tell me about your environment of creativity.
If you know me, you know that all you have to do is prime my pump a little bit, and then I'm just going to start gushing. And so for me, that's really all it took was sitting down, because there's so many thoughts circulating in my mind all the time. I see so many things that happen, and again, you're always a result. You're always a reflection of where you come from, and you're always a reflection of what's at your core. And so I always have commentaries going through my head about the things that I see and how that relates to my core. And so by the time I sit down to write something, I'll have an idea, I'll have a thought that'll be swimming through my mind, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna write on that because I've already got like this commentary on it. And if you've ever seen any of my Facebook posts, they're always like, usually like long-winded posts, because I'm passionate about making sure that you understand. And I feel that so many times things get left unsaid because people assume, well, you already knew that part of it, so I didn't need to say it. And the problem is, everybody doesn't know what you know. Yes. Everybody doesn't know or come from the same place that you come from. So if you don't teach a person to make a budget, they might not know to do that. If you don't teach a person certain things, they're not going to just automatically know to do that. So for me, it's about making sure that you make things perfectly clear so that somebody walks away having understanding, not walking away being more confused or walking away with a partial truth. Because I find that most people's issues today isn't that they have a lack of truth, it's that they have a lack of the complete truth.
Right.
And so they know just enough about something to develop an opinion about it, but then they stop there, and then they run with their new opinion on a half-truth. And that's where most deception is half-truths.
You're absolutely right. No, that's beautiful. I'm just so excited you were transparent and just let that on the table, because I can't tell you, whenever I was reading through this book, so much of what I thought I knew, I had to like revisit and like do a check again, because you think you know something. But if you don't dive into it, if you don't turn that leaf over again, you have no idea what you can find. And like I said, this whole book has done that for me. It really has helped me. So tell us a little bit about where we can find your book. You mentioned social media. How can we find you on social media?
So on social media, it's author Joshua Banks. You can do a search for that, and my big picture will come up. There is a button called Shop Now. You can get it that way. You can go to Amazon.com. Same thing, Jesus Loves You, and then put Joshua Banks, because we're still working on being a bestseller, so you still got to look for it for just a little bit. But the easiest way to find it, Facebook, author Joshua Banks, Shop Now. It is on Amazon. It's available in book form and in Kindle form. Or you can just walk outside and grab a copy.
Fantastic. And you know what? I highly encourage that you guys get this book. When you do look it up on Amazon, there are quite a few other titles that are similar, but I mean, it has his face on it, so you'll find it. This is so awesome. So I just want to leave a little bit of opportunity for you to give some final thoughts on the book. What do you want to leave the audience with as far as your book is concerned, and even throw in some inspiration concerning if we have some potential writers in the audience, maybe something that you can give them to help them along the way?
First thing I would say is don't be afraid to do it. A lot of times what keeps us from doing something is fear. So don't be afraid to do it. It's just a matter of dedicating the time to doing it and just seeing what happens, seeing what's possible. Final thoughts would definitely be, I want to thank everyone that did come for showing up and showing some support. Means a lot to me. I didn't write this book because I was setting out per se to change the world necessarily, but I did it initially for me. But as I did that, I started seeing other faces in what I was saying. And you said something to me earlier about, Josh, I see you just retilling the ground. And I think that's probably without saying it, that was my endeavor. I want people to be able to think and then rethink. Because again, that whole issue of partial truth being perceived as total truth, I think that's what's killing us. I think that's what's killing us.
In trouble.
And so that's my endeavor. That's my little words of wisdom. And again, thank everyone for showing up. Much love.
Wow. Well, you guys, there you have it. Joshua Banks, Jesus, Others, You, the Self-Centered Gospel.